In Phoenix 7.0, we're releasing sessions, which provides a convenient way to group together traces into a single conversation and view it in the UI. This example that I'm working with is actually a full stack Llama Index application. It's doing RAG over this PDF file, which contains a bunch of abstruse rules and regulations around like package sizes and mail regulations for USPS. So I'm going to go ahead and ask a few questions in order to generate a conversation history. First question I'm going to ask is, what are non-machinable letters? Non-machinable letters are letters that can't be handled by automated machine sorting. A few more questions. What is the max weight for priority mail? Turns out this is 70 pounds. So when I ask this question, the application is going through, it's doing RAG, it's pulling a relevant document, and it's answering the question. Last question will be, what are the criteria for flat size mail? Once again, doing RAG in order to answer this question. So at this point, I've generated a single conversation consisting of 3 back and forth user questions and responses. And let's see what that now looks like in the UI in Phoenix 7.0. So if I go now to the traces page, you'll see that my 3 traces show up as before, but the thing that's new is this session tab over here on the right. If I click through, you'll notice that now I've actually got one session here, this one row corresponding to the one session, the one conversation that I just had with my LLM application. This row contains various pieces of information such as a session ID, the first question from me, the user, the last response from the application, other information like the start and end time, various latencies, token counts, and the total number of traces. Now, if we click through on this row, I'm going to get this view of my session, basically replicating that chat interface that we were just interacting with. You can see each human question and an AI response, information such as the total number of traces, total token count, the median latency of any traces in the session. And then we can also drill down into more specific information for each trace. So here I've got the trace specific token count and latency, and I've also got this user ID. So in my application code, I can actually go through, if I have an ID for the user who's asking the question, I can put it here so I know who's asking the question. I can go ahead and annotate each response. So in this case, I can look at the response and I can say, oh yeah, this is correct. Let me go ahead and annotate. So I'll add a correctness annotation, giving it a score of 1 and saving it off. You can see that feedback now appears here. And if I want to drill down into the details of how this particular response was actually generated, I can do so by clicking on View Trace. I'll be brought to the underlying trace page where I can really drill down into the details of what's happening. So in this case, because we're doing RAG, maybe I'm just curious about what documents were retrieved. So I can check these out and I can see, oh yeah, here's the relevant document where it pulled the information from. So here's a short example that shows you kind of like the high level of what this looks like at the instrumentation level. So you can see in this case, we're actually using OpenAI, but the story is going to be the same for Llama Index, for LangChain, for whatever. You import your LLM application libraries. You're going to instrument your application as you usually would, in this case using our auto instrumenter for OpenAI. Do a little bit of boilerplate to actually instrument your traces. Really, the only thing that's going to be different is now we're going to use this context manager in order to set a session ID. And what that's going to do is it's going to group all of those traces that share a session ID together when you view them in the UI.